Hello students, this video is an introduction to the cytology and genetics. The main objective of this video is to familiarize the key terms associated with genetics. Human beings are multicellular organisms. That means organisms which is made up of different types of cells. There are approximately 30 trillion cells in an average human body. It includes almost 200 different types. Some of the very common ones are shown here. See, you could see the skin cells, sex cells, pancreatic cells, nerve cells, muscle cells, fat cells, endothelial cells, bone cells, and blood cells. And this blood cell constitute the majority of the cell which is seen in a human body. So, a group of similar cells constitute tissues, and tissues constitute organs to organ system, and different organ system to an organism. So the cell is the fundamental unit of all living organisms. Each cell in turn contains different cell organelles and protein inside it. Among them, nucleus play a major role or the crucial role, and it contains genetic material which governs the growth, metabolism, and division of cells. Different cells have different lifespan, and upon reaching the replication limit, or we can call it as Hayflick limit, it undergoes apoptosis or programmed cell death. Normally, there may be nearly 40 to 60 divisions in each cells. So every time dividing cells pass through a cycle which is known as cell cycle, which is having 4 major phases. And finally, after it reaches its maximum limit or Hayflick limit, it will undergo a programmed cell death that we called by the name apoptosis. So now I am focusing more on the nuclear content of this cell. So I am focusing more on the nuclear content of the cell, and nucleus is the biggest or the largest organelle inside a cell. Here you can see an interphase cell or a non-dividing cell. This is a non-dividing cell. We can call it as an interphase cell, where you can find a tangle of thread-like material inside this nucleus. You can see a tangle of thread-like material, and in this image it is more visible. See, it is a thread-like material, a tangle of thread-like material, which we can call by the name chromatin. See, this is chromatin. Chromatin is made up of DNA and its associated proteins, which is known as histones. So this chromatin contains 2 compounds. One is the DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid, and other is the associated proteins, which are known as histones. The most interesting aspect is the nucleus is only with 6 micron diameter. If you are checking the diameter of nucleus, it is only 6 micrometer. And inside this 6 micron diameter, the nucleus is lodging a chromatin of length nearly 2 meters. So if you are stretching the chromatin material, it will reach up to 2 meters. So that 2-meter length chromatin is condensed inside the 6 micron diameter nucleus. So that is a very strange thing we can see in the case of cell. As I told you earlier, every cell goes through a cell cycle, or it goes through a division phase. So this non-dividing cell or the interphase cell goes through a dividing phase. I will mark it. Goes through a dividing phase, and in this dividing phase you can see the chromatin acquired a new shape. It becomes more and more condensed. In the image which is seen below, you can see the structure that chromatin threads changed into a more classical structure, and that classical structure is known as chromosome. So chromosomes are mainly seen in dividing phase of a cell, especially in the metaphase. So at the beginning of metaphase, the typical or the classical structure of chromosome is visible. Each cell contains 23 pairs of chromosome. 23 pairs of chromosome is seen in each cell. Chromosomes is actually an organized package of DNA. If you are seeing this image, you could understand that chromosome is an organized package of DNA. These are all DNAs. See, these are all DNAs. It is packaged or highly condensed. Actually, this chromatin is condensed to form the chromosome. So the chromosome is an organized package of DNA that carries hereditary information in the form of genes. So this DNA chromosome is an organized package of DNA that carries hereditary information in the form of gene. Okay, so now at this point I am pausing for a while for asking you a question. Could you differentiate the terms chromatin, chromosome, DNA and gene now? We have explained about the 4 terms right now. Let us see. First, the chromatin. Look at here. Chromatin is a thread-like structure located inside the nucleus of a cell in interphase stage or non-dividing phase. And chromosome. Look at here. Chromosome is more condensed form of chromatin arranged in nucleosome structure seen in metaphase stage of a cell. Here, a new term has introduced like nucleosome. Nucleosome is nothing but nucleosome is a structure which is the combination of DNA and its associated protein histones. So the histone plus DNA gives nucleosome. So the nucleosome is the histone plus DNA combination. So the chromosome is more condensed. This is the chromosome. Chromosome is more condensed form of chromatin arranged in nucleosome structure seen in metaphase stage of a cell. Remember, the chromosome, the classical shape of the chromosome can be seen in the metaphase stage of a dividing cell, and it is made up of more condensed form of nucleosome structure, or a structure which is formed by the combination of histone proteins and DNA. Now what is DNA? See, here you can see the DNA very clearly. DNA is a double helical molecule carrying genetic instruction of an organism need to develop, live and reproduce. So it is a double helical molecule carrying genetic information of an organism to develop, live and reproduce. Okay. And finally, what is a gene? Genes are small sections of DNA. So genes are within DNA that codes for proteins, and they are the working subunits of DNA. So the genes are small sections of DNA that codes for proteins. You can see it clearly in this image. So genes are working sections of DNA that codes for, see here, codes for proteins, and they are the working subunits of DNA. So we have discussed about the terms chromatin, then chromosome, then DNA, and then gene. This image shows the sequence. Initially, we have discussed about the peculiarity of a cell, then about the nucleus, which is the largest organelle inside a cell, and after that, we have discussed about the thread-like structures of genetic information. That's called chromatin. It is not shown here. You have learned about that. And then we have learned about the chromosome. The structure is the more condensed form of chromatin arranged in nucleosome structure seen in metaphase stage of a cell. And then we have learned about the DNA. DNA is a double helical molecule carrying genetic instruction. And then finally, the gene. Gene is a segment of DNA or a small section of DNA that codes for proteins, and they are the working subunits of DNA.